What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. Today, we have someone with an inspirational story who's been through a lot of ups and downs. He is a life coach, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Prison of Your Own. Break free of limitations and unlock your true potential. Sean Crane, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. You have an incredible story with lots of ups and downs, and you've come out on the other side with, a perspective that's now helping a lot of people. How did this all start?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's been quite a journey. Went through a lot of hardships in my life to help me to get to this point and really find the good in life. You know what I mean? Ironically, I think we have to, we don't have to, but when we go through tough times, it allows us to see things differently and maybe gain greater insider perspective to ourselves and our lives, So for me, growing up, life was good. I'm from Santa Barbara, California, beach community, 2 hours north of LA. And it was awesome. I had friends in the neighborhood. We'd ride our bikes and play basketball and football on the street. A lot of family around, cousins that lived on the street around the corner. We played with them all day long. Aunts and uncles. It was just amazing for being a kid. And then at about age 10, 11, 12, things at home started falling apart. I started noticing my parents were drinking more. I didn't know they had drug and alcohol habits my whole life. And then at 14, my freshman year in high school, the first month, my dad got into an altercation with the police. He got arrested in front of our house in front of everyone in the neighborhood. And he went to prison behind that incident. And then shortly after, my mom just came apart. Her habit, her drug addiction got the best of her, and she actually abandoned us kids, man. So, in that time in my life, I went from not a care in the world, think I could do anything I set my mind to, and everything was just, amazing, to the complete opposite, dark, heartbroken, hopeless. And, all throughout my early stages of life from 14 until 24, as an adolescent, that's how I felt. I was lost. I had no identity. I was using drugs and alcohol to try to cope with the pain from those incidents. And ultimately that led me going to a party where I was arrested for a fight that broke out where two people were stabbed, and I got blamed for one of the stabbings. I was innocent, but I ended up being charged with attempted murder.
Wow. What happened in that altercation?
Yeah. So I was at a party. I went there with my childhood friend from kindergarten. And we didn't know anyone. We were going to meet this one girl that I knew who was a friend. We were just trying to find something to do on Saturday night. It was in a beautiful part of Santa Barbara. It's called the Mesa. It's iconic, man. These homes are right on the cliff on the beach.
Wow.
It's beautiful, big, $3, $4, $5 million homes right there on the beach. It's just beautiful. So when you get invited to a party like that, you go and check it out. And I didn't know anyone there. And so I'm just hanging out with my friend, drinking, making small talk with people. And then that girl shows up with another group of guys who I had heard of and I'd seen in passing, but I never spent time with. We didn't talk to each other. We knew of each other, but we weren't friends. And we were just hanging out the whole night. And those guys ended up getting into a fight, and it kind of died down. It was like an argument in the kitchen. And so later on that night, as we're all leaving, we decided to go our separate ways and go home. Those individuals followed them out that they had been arguing with. And now there was a fight about to take place in the front yard. And at this point, I was so drunk and altered on drugs. That's what I did. I went out, I partied, I chased girls. I just was, had no direction in life, man. That was my highlight of my life is going out and partying and socializing. So I see this fight about to take place. And I'm right there in the mix of it, getting in the middle of something that's not my business. So when the fight breaks out, I get attacked by some of these guys, and I think I'm getting jumped. They're tackling me into a car, and then I'm on the ground wrestling with somebody. And I thought they were about to start kicking and hitting me. So as I stand up and get this guy off of me, I threw 2 punches at him, and they didn't even hit him. It kind of glanced off the side of his head, but he didn't get up. He stayed face down. And I thought that was really weird. And, everyone's screaming. At this time, you hear sirens and stuff, police coming. So I start trying to flee. And I'm limping away because I hurt my back and my leg when they tackled me. And I get under the street light. My whole face and chest and arms are covered in blood, drenched, completely soaked in blood. And I didn't know what to do. My friend was running away, yelling at me to follow him. So I did. and we went up the street as the cops were racing by us. We ducked into a laundromat. I changed clothes because there was some extra clothes in there I grabbed. And then the cab was up the street, and I jumped in the cab and we left. And the next morning I woke up, the first thing I did was Google, fight at the party on the Mesa. And it said 2 individuals were stabbed. One's in critical condition. He's on life support. He might not make it. And they're looking for the suspects. And later that day, they came to that house, the SWAT team, AR-15s, and they arrested me and charged me with attempted murder.
Wow. What is going through your mind at that time when you're like, I didn't do this?
It was surreal, man. It was like, it was like a dream, a nightmare that you cannot imagine you would ever be in. And you're almost just like waiting to wake up. Like I knew it was real, and I was so numb on drugs and alcohol, that I was like trying to make sense of it, but there was a big disconnect, it was very surreal. And so when they arrested me, I couldn't believe it. It's something that you see in movies and you hear about happening to people, and you never think that would happen to you. And when they took me to jail, I was in disbelief, but part of me thought that it was all going to get cleared up. There was a mix up. People saw me leaving or wrestling with the guy, but the truth would come out. And so I was very naive early on, hoping that my name would get cleared. I'd be able to go home. And that never happened. As weeks were going by and I started seeing the police report and talking to my lawyers, it was very apparent that they thought I was the main suspect and they were wanting to prosecute me.
How did it get swept under the rug that you were innocent and yet you still end up getting sentenced?
Yeah. So a lot of people at the party knew I was innocent, like word of mouth, you could hear people talking behind the scenes, like, we know who did it. We know Sean's innocent, but those individuals didn't want to come forward and talk to the cops. There's like a code where you don't rat people out. And a lot of people go by that and they just don't want to get involved. So because I was wrestling with this guy and no one saw the initial attack, they came out and just saw me getting up, covered in blood, throwing these punches at him. It looked really bad. It looked really bad. And since no one else was coming forward, man, I was just like in the worst possible place at the worst possible time, making really bad choices to be in that situation in the first place. So the district attorney told my lawyer, hey, we'll drop his charges to attempted murder. We'll charge him with assault with a deadly weapon. He'll have to do 7 years in prison if he doesn't take it to trial. Now I had a choice. I could take it to trial and potentially lose, which most likely would happen because their conviction rate is 99%. And I would have probably been sentenced to 10, 20, 25, 30 years in prison. Or I could take this plea deal, get out in 5 or 6 years and transform my life. And at that point, it had been 8 months. 8 months of going to court, 8 months of just going through my own personal transformation at that time. And I made so many changes mentally, spiritually, physically. Like I was a completely different person by the time I took that plea deal. I had 8 months of sobriety, 8 months of clarity. Just so many things were taking place internally that I looked at it as, hey, this is the biggest challenge of my life. And this is either going to make or break me, but I can't go back now. And I got to face it head on.
Wow. There's something to say, I think, for facing challenges head on. And I'm interested to see kind of what started taking place in you in that 8-month span before you went in and kind of how you faced that head on.
Yeah. It was so many things. So, the first thing was just acceptance of the past. I was stuck in this cell all day long and I had nothing but just time to think. There was no TV. I didn't have a phone and social media or friends to talk to. No, there was no distractions, man. No job to go to, like nothing. So you're just sitting in it all day long thinking. And at first you're anxious, you're fearful, your mind's just going crazy. I had to learn to quiet that noise, And once that shock and awe wore off, it gave me time to really like peer deep within myself with some honest reflection. What I saw was that I spent those 10 years running from my pain. I was so heartbroken because my parents abandoned me for what happened that I tried to deny, like I tried to stay in denial. I tried to numb it out with drugs and alcohol. I avoided people who I hung out with when I was younger that would remind me of my good life. When friends or counselors or teachers at school or family members tried to talk to me, I shut it down, And so that was the first step for me, is like, no, you did go through these things, man. Like you can't change it. You have to accept it. And the way that I really did this was writing my parents' letters. I never knew the power of writing and self-expression, but I started writing them letters of forgiveness, And I wasn't
Wow.
forgiving them for my own benefit initially. I was doing it so they didn't self-destruct further, because by this time they had been battling addiction, they were homeless. Like, I didn't want my parents to die out of guilt for what was happening to me. You know, I could just see them like overdosing or just
Mhm.
self-destructing because they were going to like be so upset that I was going away and saddened by it. And when I wrote those letters, I felt a huge release and weight lifted off my shoulders. And I realized it was just me finally acknowledging what I went through in like great detail in writing, that allowed me to like express it. It was that cathartic moment, man, that really, I felt like liberated. Honestly, I felt like for the previous 10 years, I was trapped in a mental prison. You know, I couldn't be the person I wanted to be or live the life I wanted. And ironically, in that jail cell, I started to feel more freedom and more alive than I had for a decade. So that was the first thing. Then just making a couple promises to myself, man, about who I wanted to be going forward. And the first one was, you know, after I was going through that healing process, I started to feel alive. I started to feel a lot of like good emotions. It wasn't just all sad. It was like this desire to live a better life. It was like, no, you can, man. You're not held back anymore. But here I am looking at time in prison. You know, it's bittersweet. But I didn't care. I said, I'm never again going to contribute to like living below my potential. I'm never again going to hold back in life. I'm going to be the best version of myself every day. I'm like all in to overcome this challenge, but to be that person no matter where I go or what happens. So that was the first promise. And then the second one was I'll never touch drugs and alcohol ever again. And that was 9 years ago. I've been sober ever since. So that set the stage, man, for like me to actually put in action to change my life.
Wow. So incredible. You mentioned you were trying to calm your mind, right? And so many of us get caught up in circumstances in life, whether it's with family or work or things, these small things that really make us anxious or depressed and give us these emotions that we feel. I mean, you were facing something that was, 5, 6, 7 years in prison, which seems big compared to some of these small things that we worry about. So how did you quiet your mind? What were some techniques? You mentioned writing, but was there any other techniques that you used to quiet your mind during that time?
Yeah. What I found is that it's not necessarily what's happening in life, but it's the meaning that we give it that creates our emotional state. Right. So I had to change the way I looked at my situation. Like, I had to reframe it in order to empower me versus defeat me. And at this point, man, I was fighting for my life. So everything I did had to give me a chance to survive and move forward, like everything. So this started with taking responsibility for being in that cell, despite the fact that I was innocent, you know, taking responsibility for my life, despite the fact that my parents left us. Like, everything had to be within my control, you know? So, the way I started doing this, instead of looking at my situation as horrible and negative and, oh my God, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison and no one's helping me, and creating these negative expectations about the future, I flipped it. I started saying, what if this is a positive experience that could help you in life, Sean? What if this is a blessing in disguise and God has a plan for you that you can't see? You know, what if life is happening for you, not to you? And that sounds cliche, but literally that's the only thing that I could do in that moment to get through without feeling like I was just going to implode. Like, if I would have sat there and allowed those negative thoughts and feelings just to race within my mind, it would have led to depression, anxiety. Where's the drugs? Who has the drugs? Let me numb out these feelings. Like, I would have stayed stuck. I wouldn't have been able to grow beyond that moment. So for anyone listening, it's the meaning that you give or associate with what you're going through more so than the event itself. You know, like, you ask two different people, right? Oh, that one guy lost his job and he's heartbroken and, you know, he wants to commit suicide. The other guy lost his job and he's like, this is the moment I've been waiting for to chase my passion. Like, I have to go all in to create this thing. So it's the mental association and the way you look at it that has that makes all the difference in the world. So I started doing this in the most extreme environment. You know, I had to turn everything into a positive, or see the positive potential, right? Like, 5 years in prison wasn't bad. It was an opportunity, right? Imagine who I could become if I captured 2,000 days with effort to build myself up. Imagine who's walking out of those gates then. And I just started telling myself this, man. I had 10 years of just being beat down by life. And I said, you know what? I'm never going to let that happen to me again. I don't care if that just means doing push-ups in the cell till my arms fall off. whatever I can do, reading every book I get my hands on. Like, I'm going to focus on winning every day. And that was the mentality that I started to cultivate in that tiny little cell at the time.
Did you still have to show self-constraint when you were doing time to stay away from drugs and alcohol, or was it not as available, or how was that?
Once I made that decision, I was all in, man. I equated using drugs and alcohol with a life sentence in prison. Like, the thing that really changed me on an internal level was when I was sitting in that cell, replaying my life every day, what I saw just made me feel so horrible. I saw wasted potential. I saw squandered opportunities. I saw excuses. I saw someone who held back because of fear, insecurity, shame, guilt from where he comes from and what he went through. Growing up, I wanted to be a pro athlete. I had big dreams and I had all the ability to go out and do amazing things with my life, but I held back. So sitting in that cell, looking at a life sentence, it wasn't even the life sentence, the other inmates, missing my family. None of that was really getting to me as much as the regret I felt. That pain it was like being tortured alive. I can't even describe it to you with words, but it changed something in me ever since. So when I felt that, something in my brain, a switch flipped, and every action or moment of my life going forward after that, I had to build myself up into the person I wanted to be. I could never contribute again to that pain. So in my eyes, using drugs and alcohol was contributing to that pain. Holding back, making excuses, playing the victim, even though I'm innocent, like all these things in my eyes, they were just contributing to that pain and that neglect for life that I showed previously. So when that happened, man, it was really easy to see the path I wanted to take. And it was really easy to see the truth that I was really blind to most of my life. So like my decisions, my actions, my mentality, my attitude, everything started to shift from that point going forward.
Wow. You mentioned being an athlete, and fitness is a part of that. And you are very into fitness now. Was that something that was cultivated when you were in, or when you were out, when you started? How did that love for fitness really start?
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple different ways. Growing up, I love sports. I played basketball, football, baseball every year,
Yeah.
3 sports every season, and then surfing as I got a little older. I just love to be active, and that's part of my identity. A big part is being an athlete, and I lost that version of myself when I went through those really dark times. I didn't play sports in high school. I wasn't an active person from 14 to 24, and that was one of the biggest regrets. When I sat in that cell, I realized, man, you didn't even step foot on the field in high school. You didn't even go to college. Like, you had dreams to play in the Major League Baseball, and you didn't pursue it, and it felt horrible. So starting to work out in that cell was a way to purge negative energy. It was therapeutic. It was a way just to like alleviate some of the stress I was going through, and I started falling in love with it. I felt really good when I pushed my body through a tough workout, and I saw how it could help me develop discipline and a really strong mindset too. And it also helped me to overcome my addiction, because when I first got locked up, I was addicted to opiates, pills, and alcohol. And when I'd work out, I'd get this little endorphin rush, and it felt good, but I was doing something constructive, and there's a physical reaction there when you push through that threshold. So yeah, for a number of reasons, fitness became like the number one love of my life at that time. And for my whole prison term, I worked out consistently. I trained other guys how to get in good shape. I studied it, and it became like a pillar in my growth and my identity going forward.
Mm. I think it's something that, like you said, it's something that's innate in us. Like, it's our biology that we get these chemicals that are released when we push ourselves there. We just have to get there. So for people that, may be struggling with starting or just even getting through the door or making fitness a priority in their life, what is something that could maybe help them to be able to push through that and start?
Yeah, well, a couple things. Everyone talks about like, oh, I just need motivation, or I just need to be disciplined. And they're already looking at it the wrong way. We need to really think about the type of person we want to be. Like, what life do we want? And how does being healthy play into that? Why is being healthy important? Why does it matter? Are you overweight and diabetic and you have kids or grandkids you can leave behind if you die?
Right.
Do you not feel attractive when you're with your partner and it just sucks, that feeling? Like, we have to find the deeper reasoning behind things, because a lot of people don't like to work out. and they have trouble getting up and going to the gym consistently because they're just thinking about those machines and they're tired and blah, blah, blah. Like, but if you thought about every day you miss is a day less that you're going to spend with your family because you're going to die earlier, would that change things for you? Right? Probably. So you have to find the deeper reasoning behind what you're doing. And then once you can clarify that, just know that starting small and establishing the habit is going to be more impactful long-term than having to go there and crush an amazing workout every time. Like, you're more likely to stay the course if you just dedicate yourself 5 minutes a day for exercise for 30 days. Anyone could do that. Like 5 minutes a day for 30 days, and then reevaluate at the end of those 30 days. Can you go 7 minutes, right? Can you go 10? So like, there's something so very important to be said about starting small and building big over time, because once you build that momentum, that's where the shift takes place here, right? And you develop those habits, and then it's easier to add the difficulty in later.
Hmm. Yeah, momentum is a funny thing because we often associate momentum with a positive aspect, but it can go the other way just as easily. Like you said, through those 10 years, the momentum wasn't on the other side, but 8 months turned around real quick to positive momentum. So how can we really drive momentum? Like, there's so many excuses that we can always give ourselves, but what's a way that we can put life into perspective to be able to drive momentum regardless of our circumstances?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. Couple things. I think it's like the way you're thinking and then your actions, obviously. And what I mean by that is just consistency is so crucial. And it just takes focus on the little things throughout your day to build up momentum in a very short period of time. The key is to do them with effort, so that like, you don't have to have these monumental accomplishments to feel proud of how you lived that day. And then that's a win. Can you do it again tomorrow? Can you pour yourself into the little things and do everything to the best of your ability, right? Show up in your workspace with a good attitude and give more effort. Be kind to people, like go above and beyond when you're doing stuff. Show up back at home with a good attitude, like be positive, be patient, like whatever you can do day in and day out just to get 1% better, that starts to add up. The key for me is when I go to sleep at night, if I feel proud of how I lived that day, that's a win. And then tomorrow I wake up and I want to do it again because I like the way that felt. Well, all of a sudden a month went by, you're like, damn, dude, I just crushed January. I want to do that again. Like, I feel great. So what I found is when I was in my cell, man, I had nothing. I had a little pocket dictionary, some writing paper, and some books. I built so much momentum through this process right here that I'm describing in those 6 to 8 months that when I got to prison, I felt literally unstoppable. Like, I was like, wow, what is going on here? Let's go. And all I was doing every day was following my routine. I'd clean my cell down in the morning. I'd work out. I'd read whatever books I had in the cell at the time. I'd write letters, and I'd look up words in my dictionary because I was not good at spelling and I didn't know any words, the definitions of them, and I wanted to improve that. I just did those things every day. And I'd go to sleep and I got 1% better than I was yesterday. And then tomorrow I went to sleep and I was 1% better. I could like feel the growth in real time. So for anyone that's struggling, focus on the little things, do them to the best of your ability with with pride and effort, and just do them consistently and dedicate yourself to that. Pick 3 things. Make my bed every day, do a 10-minute walk in the morning, drink a gallon of water a day. Can you do that for 30 days? Cool. You're going to level up in those 30 days. Now, what are you going to add? Add one thing to the list every month. By the end of the year, you have like 20 things that you're doing,
Yeah, you hear the make your bed, and it really is true, because at the end of the day, when you go back to it, hey, I did this. I held myself to this standard. It's really interesting. And I love what you're saying about it's almost the compound effect, right? It's putting these little things in and building and building. You mentioned your habits that you had when you were in. How have they changed, or have you added to them when they were out? Was it a difference to be able to kind of transition those habits into real life, or were they just locked in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to have structure, but also be flexible. I like to be flexible in my routines, but also have routines that are non-negotiable. Like, right. I have so what happened is when I got to prison, I started there was no privacy there, man. You're around people, it's loud. There's no quiet time. When the lights go out at night until you fall asleep, you get a little quiet and that solitude, and you really notice it. You're like, wow, it's really quiet. Right. And then, so what I started doing is getting up earlier than everyone. So I had that as well. I just wanted to be mentally prepared for the day, because the worst thing would have been for me just to jump out of bed and be out of my cell and be irritable or depressed that day and react to somebody. I wanted to go out there fully aware, fully alert, so that I could practice patience, that I could be respectful. I didn't want to get myself in any trouble there that would have kept me in prison longer. So I called this putting on my armor. I'd just get up every morning about an hour before I had to get out of the cell. And I just started like praying and meditating. I just started like thinking about what I wanted, having that moment of clarity. And then I'd write down what I was feeling. Over time, I started writing and journaling. And then whatever book I was reading at the time, I'd read it, or maybe I'd exercise. And that started to establish a morning routine for me. And I just noticed on the days I did that, I felt sharper. My emotions felt better. I just felt this different energy. So I started doing that every day. And coming home, that's probably the most impactful thing that I've continued to do, is get up at least an hour before I have to talk to anyone, before I look at any screens. I'm not reacting to anything. I want to be able to tap into what's going on here. And when I do that, and there's no screens, no phone, no emails, then man. So a couple things. It helps me to really like focus on the vision and where I'm going in life. Like I can tap into that vision. I get up and meditate, and I think about where I want to be in 10 years. I think about how I'm going to show up today as a dad or as a coach or in different areas of my life. And I feel the emotion behind it. I put myself in that place, and I'm getting practice reps. Everyone's sleeping. I'm getting practice reps. The more I do that, I'm training my brain to show up that way in real life. So when I do that, I get a lot of creative energy too. You tap into that creative reservoir that most of us are numb to, because we're always on our phones and looking externally. So
Yeah.
I write content from those visualizations and those meditation sessions. I'll go do a video. I'll record stuff later. So what I do is I just capture it. I write it down. I just brain dump it on the paper. This is what I'm feeling. These are my thoughts and ideas. And later I'll circle back around. So I have a certain way of journal to capture that information, to tap into gratitude, and just to really focus my energy on the man I want to be that day. And then I usually go move my body. I'll go to the gym, get that endorphin rush and just push myself. Now it's 7:00 and the kids are just getting up, and I get to get them breakfast, and I'm already ahead, man. I just ran a marathon. Like I'm feeling great, and it just sets the tone for the whole day for me.
Yeah. I've really noticed that, I got the opportunity to play athletics in college, and you're kind of forced to get up at 5, and you're like barely rolling out of bed and trying to get on the field on time and all these things. But now that, I've been out for a while and don't have sport anymore, I've almost feel a craving to wake up early because of exactly what you said. Your phone's not ringing, your emails aren't buzzing. You have that time to be proactive, so you're not reactive to what life is giving you, because it's going to throw punches every day. So, man, solitude, there's something to be said about that. And I love what you said about how external everything is, because we're always having this stimulus. Like our phones are just like crack, you hear the buzz and you twitch for it, right? So I think it's very important to prioritize that morning time and make it a ritual. It can be life-changing. I really do think so.
Oh yeah. Like I tell people I get 2 days for every day they get, because of my morning routine. Like there's a depth to everybody that most people never tap into, because we're constantly distracted. There's a depth to you, thoughts, ideas, realizations, visualizations. Like there's so much information there. And when you give yourself the opportunity to receive it and to tap into that and to like, acknowledge it and reflect on it, it is life-changing. If everyone in the world had to get up for the first hour of the day and be alone and have nothing external, like no stimulus around them, that their lives, the quality of their lives would elevate tremendously. I guarantee that.
Yeah. You mentioned that you had a dictionary and you're looking up words, and now you're writing in your journal daily, and you've written a book. So where did this idea of the book come from, and what's in it? What can people expect if they pick it up?
Yeah. So this is one of the things that really shape my perspective and really help me to form a healthier, more authentic identity going forward. Well, I shouldn't say authentic, but just like evolved, So my whole life, I thought I was really athletic. I was good in social settings, but I just wasn't the smartest kid, and I could get by in school just with common sense, and school's not that hard. You do the work, you find the answers, blah, blah, blah. But when it came to like being very intellectual and like witty and like, boom, I didn't think I had that part of me. So when I got locked up, I was writing letters, trying to communicate to my family. and my writing was horrible. My spelling was horrible. I hadn't tried in school. I didn't try at all in high school. And I had a cellmate at the time, and I kept asking him, "Hey, how do you spell this word? How do you spell, discomfort? How do you spell like all these random words and silly words, like easy ones?" And he was helping me. And then finally, one day he had this little pocket dictionary, and I have it here somewhere. I still have it to this day, but he threw it and hit me in the shoulder from, across the cell. He said, "Look it up." I was like, this guy, man, I was kind of mad. Felt disrespectful, but I thought my head, okay, watch this. I took it as a personal challenge. No. So every day I started using it, looking up words as I'm writing my letters home, looking up words. And then I'd be reading and I'd come across a word I didn't know the meaning of. And previously I'd just skip over it and you can make sense of what it means, given the sentence and context. But I said, why would I just skip over it? Like, don't you want to know what that word means? Like, you only have this one life. You're stuck in this cell. Like, do something with this time. So I started looking up all those words, and I'd keep a list of them, and I'd write the definition and, the type of speech, and I'd memorize them. And then at the end of the week, I'd actually quiz myself on this list every week. And I started doing this every week, every book, every letter. And I felt my mind start coming alive. I felt my speed of thought improve, my memory. I could feel the change in real time. I thought, oh my gosh, man, I'm changing a part of myself that I thought I could not change. Like, I thought I was stuck a certain way, and I'm proving to myself with effort and consistently pushing myself, I can improve. It was life-changing for me. So when I got to prison, that's what gave me the courage to take college courses. I tried to back out and find excuses just like I had my whole life, but I've been going through these changes. I'm like, I can't do that to myself anymore. And that experience gave me the courage to take my first college course. And I ended up getting 4 degrees, and getting out of prison early. And then when I got home, I knew I wanted to share my story and write a book. Those experiences gave me the courage to do it. I've been reading and writing for years at this point. I went from not thinking I was smart and bad at writing to like, I'm actually a really good writer. I wrote papers in college. My teacher wrote me back. She goes, "I cannot believe you're in prison. Your paper was the best paper in the whole school." For Coastline Community College in Orange County, my humanities to the arts teacher. I still have her little postcard. So all these things were happening, and I was like, man, I got this side of me that I never knew before. Like this intellect, this wit, so this ability to write and speak. And so, yeah, it gave me the courage to write my book last year, Prison of Your Own. It talks about my journey from struggling adolescent, the dark years, what I went through. It talks about prison life, what that was like, the details there. And then what I've been able to do since I came home and changed my life and where I'm going now.
So awesome. I've spoken to so many people who had similar stories of learning disabilities or being told they couldn't do this or do that. And now you're speaking in front of everybody. You're leading so many people. You're being that positive role model and mentor that maybe you could have used at that time. So it's just truly incredible. And the more I hear these stories, the more it makes me realize there's literally no limitations on what we can do if we change our mindset and our actions. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, no, it is, man. Like I firmly believe that now, and I didn't before. I thought that I was just kind of stuck that way. And I think a lot of people do, but your belief, in something, it's subjective. Like whatever you believe is true. If you believe you're dumb, you are. If you believe you're smart, then you will become smart. Like you could change something about you with a belief. Like don't make it a final statement. Leave it open-ended. Instead of I'm dumb, I'm not smart. Well, what if I tried? Can I change, the way my brain communicates? Can I change my memory? Can I change? And just that open-ended, way of looking at it can give you hope. And then you start trying and putting an effort, man. It changes things.
Right. And I think that's not saying that even when you do implement these things that every day you're going to want to get up and do it. That motivation aspect is, it's here and there. You're not always going to be motivated. There's going to be times where you have to push through that, and I think verbal cues has been a good one for me. I'm looking at a whiteboard right now that has a lot of my goals for the year, because usually I'd write something down and I wouldn't be able to see it. I'd have it in a journal or something, but you mentioned, having a Post-it note in your cell, something that reminded you, gave you that visual cue. What did that note say?
Yeah, I have it written on a canvas now, right here on my wall in my office. So I don't know where this came from, but I don't know how I got the Post-it note, but I did. And I wrote the words, "How bad do you want it?" on the Post-it note, and I stuck it right on my cell wall. And every time I'd get moved to a different prison or cell, I'd peel it off and I'd take it with me. And so I wrote that. And then there was another one: "Who are you and who are you becoming?" Reminding me of like the fact that we can change and our growth is never complete. It's just how much work you're going to put in. Like, who are you right now and who are you becoming through the actions that you're, implementing today. But the how bad do you want it, man? That was like a deep, like, you know, like call to fight, every day. Like, how bad do you want it? Oh, you're tired. Oh, you're sick. Oh, okay. Oh, you want to take it easy right now? Like, you don't want it bad enough. You have to push through that discomfort or those moments where you're not motivated or you're tired or you're sick. Like, you can. And when you do, you see that like you can always do that. You don't have to just take a nap because you're tired. Like, there's times where you need to rejuvenate, but there's times where you need to push too.
Yeah, it's a fine line, I think. And 9 times out of 10, you need to push, if you ask me, because
Yeah.
we're capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. Our bodies are, I mean, it's what is it? Goggins said, like, when your mind starts telling you to quit, you're at like 30% of your capacity, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, if you were taught from a young age, if all of society was taught that, like, when you're sick and not feeling well, you have to push harder. And that was like something that we practiced and like expressed as a society, it'd be easy for people. It'd be expected. But it's because you hear that from an early age, like, oh, you're tired, just take it easy. Oh, you're sick. Like, yeah, I know you're sick and it doesn't feel well, but if you add up those days in the course of 10 years that you were sick and tired and didn't feel like doing it, you're gonna have thousands of days that you just kind of like let pass you by because you didn't push through it. I'm just capturing all those days. You know what I mean? They add up over time.
Yeah. I'm thinking back now when you were training, you're starting to train and you're in prison and you're trying to, do push-ups till your arms fall off kind of thing. What was the nutrition aspect of that? Like, how would you get through that part?
Yeah, it was rough. So when I first got locked up in the county jail, they actually had pretty good food, man. They did. I was like, wow, this is not bad. And I was eating more in jail than I was on the street just because I was strung out drinking. But then they changed the diet. And man, for like breakfast, you'd get a little cereal. You'd get this like biscuit that was so dry, it was like a wood chip, and a little packet of jelly or something. That was breakfast. It was crazy. And then, being in reception, they send you from county jail to a reception center where they figure out where you're going to go. So there you're in your cell all day long too. And you can't get access to food. You don't have commissary yet. So you're always hungry. Like, I don't think most people don't know what it's like in our country and in most developed countries to be continuously hungry for days, weeks, and months at a time with nothing you can do about it. Like, guys would roll up toilet paper and swallow it and drink water to try to stay full. Like, you're always hungry. You go to bed hungry every night. You have fantasies about food. You're starving. But I still worked out throughout that whole time. I just had to. It was my medicine. And then when you got to prison, you can get packages and more commissary. But the nutrition is horrible. You're eating like 80% carbs, all packaged food, high in sodium. I remember my cheeks were all puffy because of all the water retention. I weighed like the same as I do now, but I looked like I had a balloon for a face.
Yeah. What exactly are you doing with coaching now? Like, what aspects are you focusing in on? Is there something specific, swim lane?
Yeah. So, I do what I call life coaching, heavy on mindset, habit formation. We do fitness and nutrition coaching as well, because I think that's a key component to just building ourselves up to be at our best. But I really took the steps that I just described to you that I went through in jail and prison, and I turned them into a coaching program. It's like when a client comes to me and he's like, "Hey man, I just keep self-sabotaging, or I'm lacking belief in myself. I think I have like some stuff from the past that just keeps coming up, and it takes, I don't feel capable, like confident to go out and do what I want." I take them through that healing process. We have to go back to the past a lot and work on some stuff that we still haven't overcome, whether it's things with our parents, things in school with bullies or other kids. Like, we hold on to a lot of stuff and we wonder why we feel like we're hitting a wall. We wonder why we can't excel to that next level where we want to be at. So I take them through that process before we get real clear on where they want to go in life and step into that vision creation step, and then go into the daily habits, the routines, and just streamline their lifestyle. So heavy on the mindset and really helping them to get clear on where they're going, what they want, why that's important to them. Because when we can articulate that, we have that clarity, it clears up a lot of the fog, and a lot of the excuses start to fall by the wayside. And you can really tap into some incredible energy that can change your life when you do that.
Yeah, the vision creation side, I like that, because you mentioned visualizing in the mornings and quiet times, or closing your eyes and seeing who you wanted to be in 10 years. How do we go from that quiet time and seeing and knowing what we can truly be to then making it and pushing it into that creation cycle? Like, what is in between
that's a great question. So the morning isn't going to be as significant if you haven't really clarified what you want. So for me, I had so much time to sit in my cell and think that I started to paint a picture with my mind of the life I wanted. I saw me at my best. I saw me with my family. I saw me helping other people. I saw, where I lived, what that lifestyle looked like. So what I help people do, first of all, is really write out in great detail, not what they expect or what they think is possible in 10 years, but what do you want? Like, what's that truth in your heart telling you? So we write it out in as much detail as possible. And then I have them write their legacy letter. This is the end of your life. When you die and people are cremating you or celebrating your life, your funeral, what are they talking about? What did you do? What were your accomplishments? What were Mason's contributions to society? What were his big achievements? Like, what are they going to say about you, and what will you be remembered as? And I notice when people write that stuff out and they put their mind there at the end of their life, like, oh shit, I'm going to die. Like, screw 10-year goals. Like, what's the bigger picture? So once they go through that writing, the writing is powerful because you're using multiple regions of your brain, imagery, there's emotion involved. You're analyzing things with your prefrontal cortex. So you're really putting together like this vision step that is creating new neural networks in your brain. That's like a seed planted, right? But now we have to water it every day. So getting up in the morning, that's the vision. That's what you're focusing on. The journaling steps that I teach them help them to tap into those same, visions, that same emotion behind it. Like, I teach them specific ways to write and to tap into that vision, or to like express the man they want to be that day, and focus on like who they have to be that day to align to that vision, right? So this all sets the stage. Now, of course, we need actions and results to move us towards that. But once we go through those first two steps, starting to help them orchestrate their days and plan ahead and like map it out, it's so much easier because it makes sense. They know where they're going, why that's important to them. Okay, now let's reverse engineer it. What do we have to do today? Oh, you want to lose 100 pounds? Well, you got to go to the gym today. Let's start seeing what you're eating. And like, oh, you want to earn, 7 figures by the next 10 years. Okay, well, like, what are you doing now? Like, how can you double that? Do you need assistance? Do you need VAs? How can we scale? Like, all the details and pieces are there. Once we know what you want and why it's important to you, we can reverse engineer it and figure out all the other details.
The reverse engineer is the big thing. A lot of the research that I've done is talking about seeing exactly where you want to be and then just working backwards. So often I feel like we complicate, whether it's business, relationships, all of these things in our life. We get so caught up in the mundane that we don't take the big picture and realize that, hey, this is where we want to go. Now, what's our daily habits?
Yeah. A lot of people, they second guess themselves. That there's fear. Fear holds people back from really expressing what they want. But also, if you're somebody who hasn't been like crushing it, you're not really living at that level you want to be at, it's hard for some people to really visualize what they want. So in that case, I tell people, well, what don't you want? Oh, you don't want to sleep in anymore because you feel like shit when you do. Okay. You don't want to like be disconnected when you're with the family and on your phone. You want to be more present. Okay. Oh, you don't want to be like arguing with your wife. Like, then they don't realize, but by saying what they don't want, they start to slowly create a vision. Like, okay, what's the opposite of that? It's just that back and forth. A lot of times questions that get people thinking and like looking within themselves and asking them why and kind of peeling back those layers, they start to tap into that truth within, and it starts to come out eventually. That's why not everyone I work with, but a handful of the guys I do one-on-one calls with, because they need more guidance there. They need like some more hands-on accountability and support, and really to like guide them through those steps. And I see it, man. I see when they start to change and that shift starts to take place. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is. What were the 4 degrees that you got when you were in prison?
Oh yeah, so they're all associate's degrees, and
Nice.
the way it works is you need your like general ed, and then a lot of the courses overlap too. So like I'd
Yeah.
get credit for, so I got psychology, social and behavioral sciences, humanities through the arts type degree, or it might have been it might have been humanities through the arts,
Yeah.
and then business.
Yeah, I'm so intrigued. You started talking about like prefrontal cortex and stuff. I'm so intrigued with neuroscience. I've had a few doctors on and stuff and just really eat that stuff up. It's so interesting to me how we're wired.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things to cover. And I always had books sent in to me, educational books, self-help books. So in between studying and everything I was doing, I was just devouring any information I could get my hands on because it's fascinating. It helps you to learn about yourself and just expand your knowledge base.
Yeah. What was your favorite book so
Oh,
far?
well, so my favorite book, it was the timing, and it was just, I felt like, the author described exactly what I was feeling internally, was Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill, he talks about basically like that desire we all have in us, and just everything that he outlined in that book, I was experiencing in that moment or had in the preceding years. And I felt literally like he expressed things that I couldn't express with words. Like, I used the word desire, but he'd write, a whole paragraph or page about the desire that we have in us to self-actualize and all these things. And I read it, I was like, wow, I'm on this path. That's me. Like, and I already knew I was tapped into something really special and I was going somewhere in life. I felt it. But when I read that book, it just started clicking for me, and it was really awesome.
Yeah, that's a great one. I'm actually about to finish it. It's funny that you said that. I'm on like
Wow.
the last couple pages of it, but yeah,
Yeah. I'll
it's a
probably
really good
reread
one.
it. Yeah. I'll probably reread it.
Yeah, I can't remember who I was listening to the other day, but older gentleman, and was like, dude, he just pulled up like the old version and just he was like, this is my Bible, basically. He's like, I have written in this thing over and over and over again and just read it so many different times. It really makes sense to me though, because these are people that he's alluding to that for 20 plus years he was doing this research on some of the most successful people in history, and all of them had these characteristics, including the things that we've been mentioning, like the visualization, the desire, the meditation, action.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's not a coincidence. I mean, people say success leaves secrets, right? There's a formula out there, man. It's not going to change. It's going to be the same forever. And it has been forever. And once you tap into it and you start doing your own research and picking people's brains and applying it in your own life, you start to really put those pieces together.
The question I love to ask, and anyone that's listening to the show knows what it's coming, but what is your definition of success?
Oh, I love that. Gratitude. For me, it's gratitude, man. I became the happiest person in my life when I was in the cell with nothing. There's been times out here where I have more money than I ever have, more success, clients, whatever, wealth, material items, even my wife and children. And there's been moments where I lacked that same gratitude. I tapped into something really special when I was fighting for my life because I saw the value in our lives, and the things that we tend to glorify, they don't produce it, man. Like, okay, you want 8 figures, you want a 7-figure business. The reason you feel fulfilled at the end of that journey is because of the journey, not the 7 figures, right? So for me, it's about gratitude, and that stems from like facing my fears, acknowledging that truth in my heart, and being courageous enough to take action. And when I do, I feel so proud of myself for that it creates this energy and like joy inside of me that's I can't explain that with words. And that's what happened to me back, when I got incarcerated, and I continue just to do that ever since. So that was a long answer. I hope that made sense though.
No, very well said. Very well said. Sean, where can everybody find you, find your book, find your socials, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, it's all the same. Sean Michael Crane. And then my book, Prison of Your Own, is available on Amazon. There's hardcover, paperback, and audiobook.
Amazing. Sean, thank you so much for coming on the show, guys. Everybody go check him out, give him a follow, read the book. I know I am going to. So Thank you so much for coming on the show, Sean. It has been an absolute pleasure. A lot of people are going to get a lot out of this episode. I know it.
Yeah, man. Really appreciate you having me on. Great conversation.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast. Go check us out. If you haven't already on Instagram at Breathe and Air, go check Sean out at Sean Michael Crane on Instagram and go get the book. Go read it. Go share it with friends. If you enjoyed today, share this episode with someone who you think could enjoy it. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, give us a rating. Let us know what you thought of the show. We always want that constructive feedback. So, Sean, once again, man, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.